Okay, this is the final screencast looking at climate change, and we're going to be looking at the responses to climate change. And in this, we're going to be exploring the local and global responses to climate change. So, we've got two main areas here to focus on. Let's focus on the local areas to start off with. Sorry, the global areas to start off with. Right, these are agreements between nations, and we can see a couple of examples which all kind of stem together. Their aim is to kind of stabilise and control greenhouse gas emissions as opposed to the rapid rise we're getting at the moment. And so we've got two main ones. You've got the 1992 Rio Earth Summit, which then led to the 97 Kyoto Treaty, which is the one which is most well known. And that came into force in 2005. And there was a basic concept behind that. And that was that every country who signed up to the treaty was going to control their greenhouse gas emissions, and the aim was to reduce them by 5.2% compared to 1990 levels. Each country agreed to a limit, so you've got 8% for the EU, 7% for the USA. Remember, specifics are key. And certain countries were allowed to increase their carbon emissions because they weren't actually emitting up to their allowance, and Australia is an example of that. And what a lot of the countries who were under the levels was they traded their carbon footprint with other countries so that you could actually bring a balance to it. There is one problem with this treaty. Not all countries have ratified the treaty, and that could lead to its failure. And that's the kind of key thing to think about, is being aware that these global treaties can actually fail, because even if countries sign up to them, where there's no necessarily punishment to actually go for a follow through with it if they don't meet it. Second idea is local. Okay, this is an example. This is a well-known example called the Live Simply campaign. Live Simply was a 2007 campaign set up by the Catholic Church, and its basic concept was to get schools and students thinking about their impacts on the earth. We looked into this at Riddlesdown, and at Riddlesdown we've introduced a number of different things. We've got across-school recycling, we've got the solar panels on the roof of the dining hall, and we've got the movement-sensitive light switches, all of which are aimed at reducing our carbon emissions. And it's important that you just remember those and be aware of those specific details. So, here's an exam question. Explain one local response to climate change. So your answer is going to be Live Simply. Pause the video, have a crack at answering the question. So, let's have a look at a bad answer first. This is an example which didn't really go anywhere, and because this is going to be in a question 3, it has to get your answer to relate to climate change, and it's about reducing carbon dioxide and emission levels, really. So the answer which you can read here got 1 mark, because they're not really answering the question. This is what the mark scheme said. You got 1 mark per point, maximum 1 mark if there was only descriptive comments, so you had to make sure you're explaining it. And then you've got your example here, and you can see where the marks came from for that. Okay, hopefully you found this a useful session, and this is the last video looking at climate change.